Liv Boeree, super smart astrophysics grad, TV presenter, model, horse rider and rock chick.
I was at university studying physics, being a crazy rocker chick, just playing guitar all the time.
In April 2010, her world was about to explode onto the international poker stage when she became one of a handful of women to be crowned European Poker Tour champion. But this wasn't just any EPT. It was the biggest event in EPT history, with a whopping 1,240 runners and a prize pool of €6 million.
Liv, a former TV presenter who used to work on the European Poker Tour, now here with a chance at winning €1.25 million. That's the first place in this tournament.
I just had such an overwhelmingly strong feeling that I was going to make the final table. And actually, I thought I was going to win the tournament.
Liv will be telling us the story in her very own words, right up to the winning moment of her victory in San Remo. She'll be talking us through each of those decisive hands.
Oh, it's this hand. No.
Your favourite hand. We decided to put this in there just to cheer you up.
It's so embarrassing.
And telling us what was really going through her mind.
Furious. Absolutely furious. I mean, I couldn't have played the hand worse, and I was really, really annoyed.
As she edged ever closer to glory.
She is now a 70-30 favourite. Carlsen needs that ace or that six on the Turnor River, or we have a champion here on the Italian Riviera.
And Carlsen picking up a gut shot now. 4 more outs.
Any 9, any ace, any 6. Those are his outs. The river is a blank. Liv Boeree has done it. Jakob Carlsen's the runner-up. Liv Boeree is the champion of EPT San Remo. €1.25 million.
This is the story of how Liv Boeree became poker's $1 million girl.
I arrived in San Remo to commentate on the final 2 days of the tournament. 24 players were left at this stage, and looking at the list, I saw Liv Boeree's name, and I knew Liv from when she used to play the low buy and rebuy tournaments in the London clubs that I still play. She went on to play major events internationally, and she'd had some deep runs, but the final table, the big score, had eluded her until now. But here she was in the top 2% of the biggest poker tournament to ever be held in Europe.
I actually have a funny story of how I ended up in San Remo. I wasn't even going to go to the tournament. I was actually down in south of France for another tournament about a week or so before it started. And I busted out of that, and then the Icelandic volcano erupted and all the flights were grounded. So I was stuck in the south of France. I was like, well, I know EPT at San Remo's coming up. I don't have a buy-in for it, but I might as well stick around and go over there, have a nice few days in the south of France and Italy, and I'll try a satellite. So I played a satellite, won my seat into the 5K tournament for just €500, and then the rest is history.
But before history could be made, Liv had to toil through 4 solid days of play and witness the departure of 1,216 players to reach the last 24. Early on day 5, she sent Holland's Paul Valkenburg and Italy's Luigi Pinataro packing to install herself in second place on the chip leaderboard.
It started off really well, day 5. I opened pocket kings, and I remember thinking, oh, Luigi is going to shove really wide here, and he actually did. He just shoved 30 blinds over my open. Obviously, I snapped cord with kings, and I remember thinking, I don't want to sweat. Please, I can't even bear a sweat. Just give me a king. So first card out, king. Next card, oh, another king. So that was nice. The deck was just looking after me that day.
To say that Liv got off to a great start on day 5 is an epic understatement. She eliminated a couple of players, she built up her stack, she was in with a really strong chance of making the final table. But to be honest, she was still under the radar to a certain degree because we were very focused on the previous EPT champions, Alan Becker and Tan Duc Nguyen, and also on the guy who was the current chip leader, another British player, Michael Piper.
Not only did Liv share her nationality with chip leader Michael Piper, they also had something else in common.
It's really weird, we actually went to university together before either one of us was into poker. It's so weird. I mean, it's just so strange how life sort of reunites people and went full circle. We went from studying maths and physics at university to being on a final table somewhere in Italy. It was kind of poetic, and it was really nice to have a friend at the table.
And it wasn't long before Liv made the final 16, her next big victory over Swede Per Linda in the battle for 12th place.
And it's the Swede who's at risk here, needing to see a jack on the Turnor River Close but no cigar. A king on the river, a set for Liv. Per Linda is sent to the rail. A 13th place finish for the Swede.
Yeah, I was very excited when I knocked out Per, but I was excited every time I knocked someone out. I can't say that one was any more pivotal than the rest.
Obviously, picking up a pair of kings in a poker tournament is fantastic, but it's even more fantastic when your opponent picks up a premium hand that's not quite as good as kings, and that's the situation Per Linda found himself in with pocket jacks. So for Liv, she eliminates a player, she chips up, and you've got to feel in her position that if you keep finding spots like that, that it's written, that it's your destiny, that it's written in the stars.
I just had this amazing feeling that everything's going right, and your energy is really high, and you're playing the best you can play, and the cards are going your way, you're picking up big hands. I had just reads on all my opponents, I could get them to do what I wanted to do. It was just, I just felt so good.
Although we were focused on the players at our TV table, we did cut away every time Liv was in a hand, and every time she was in a hand it seemed to be an all-in. She had the goods, and she eliminated a player and won even more chips.
Recent EPT Snowfest champion and tournament favourite Alan Becker upset the apple cart when he crashed out in 12th place, followed closely by fellow former champ Ramon Cesare in 11th and Dimitri Stelmach in 10th, leaving just 9 more men left for Liv to take down. And our heroine of the day faced the pressure of the TV table for the first time in the tournament, as the last 2 tables merged to one to decide who would burst the dreaded final table bubble.
I don't think the cameras really faze me that much. I'm used to playing on TV. I'm fortunate that I have that as as my background. And yeah, before you sit down, you're just incredibly. You just don't really know what to do yourself. You see this TV set. You've got to remember the whole card cam. You've got all the lights in your face. It's hot in there. There's an audience. But actually, when you sit back down and the pressure is almost back on you, you feel better.
And it wasn't long before that pressure began to show as Liv struggled to hide her frustrations with an infamous hand against Italian Claudio Pichecci.
OK, Liv, 9 players left, 8 to make the final table. That's about a 40,000 and change difference in prize money. And you've been playing a lot of poker here, so you must be knackered.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, this was the end of day 5 by this point. So you'd been playing 5 days of poker, 12 hours a day, hadn't been sleeping much. I mean, I hadn't. By the time I got to this stage, I was, very nervous and excited, and it's difficult to sleep when you know you have, a huge day of poker the next day.
Now, this guy, Pichecci, the Italian, bit of form with him around the table. Tell us what had happened immediately before this hand.
Well, so the very previous hand, I wasn't involved in it, but he had about 28 big blinds starting the hand, and he had opened and then called a 3-bet out of position, and then check-folded a board of Queen 5 Deuce Rainbow showing a pair of 7s. So basically, he had been set mining with a short stack of like 28 big blinds with pocket 7s, and then basically if he hadn't hit his 7, he was done with the hand, regardless of how nice the flop was for him.
So he's raised 200,000 here. Bearing that in mind, what you just said, what are you thinking right now?
Well, at this point, we haven't seen my cards yet, but I know I have ace king. I'm thinking, well, I wonder if he has another pocket pair, because if he has a pocket pair, I can basically bet really big pre-flop. I can make a 3-bet, and I know he's going to probably set mine.
Set mine? Explain that.
When you're calling with a pocket pair, hoping to hit a third one of those cards. So calling with 6s and hoping that another 6 comes out to make your set.
So a staple of a jammy player, basically.
Well, if you're deep enough, then set mining can be hugely profitable. But you've got to have enough chips in order to do it.
And Liv shoved all in here. Let's have a little listen to how the commentators on the day reacted to what happened next.
He just called.
That's very odd. I expected an all-in or fold here.
As did I. He's putting in nearly a third of his chips with a pair pre-flop. I think he's going with the no ace, no king on the flop strategy.
Or even better, flop a set.
And 3 6s for Pichecci.
I'm all in.
Liv shoves the insta-call. And she's not happy.
How do you call a third of your stack pre-flop? I mean, it's just... How do you... I know, but it's just atrocious.
I'm kind of with her here, to be honest.
Pichecci making a very unorthodox call here.
It's not the right thing to say. It was just the only way I can justify being that upset was I was very stressed out and I was watching half of my stack disappear.
I don't know if he's drinking so much water and looking so nervous because he's worried about the hand or whether you're about to steam over the table. It's hard to work that out.
Yeah, I was one of those moments where you want to just flip the table over in frustration.
So how do you regroup from a hand like this?
Well, I was actually very fortunate that in this situation we just had to lose one more player and then we were done for the day. But as you can see, I'm on mega tilt.
Still smiling though.
What do you... If I just shoved pre, would you have called? If I just...
So you're trying to find out, just information here about what he was doing?
Yeah, I'm trying to find out what his pre-flop calling ranges are as well.
I don't know. I'll see.
No?
Well, I think you've established, Liv, that he's a bit of a loose cannon, shall we say, as a player, but that information would serve you well when it came to the final
I'm trying to
table.
get value.
He's calling.
I remember thinking at the time it was a little bit optimistic of Liv to shove that flop, because remember, Pichetschi had shown sevens before. This flop was low and connected. There was a very good chance he had either a set or a straight draw. There was a very good chance he was going to call Liv's shove, and that's exactly what he did. And while I shared her frustration to a certain degree with how he played the hand, I think she let it get to her a little bit too much. I did concern myself that she was steaming in a major way, and that might affect how she played the rest of the final table.
Yeah, I was genuinely annoyed that he got lucky against me, just with the way the hands had played previously. You know, he would have folded on any other flop. But that said, you've got to know not to tap the glass, as the expression goes, and I probably should have held my tongue and kept my cool a little bit more. But if that hand hadn't gone that way, then I may not have won the tournament.
But we all know that wasn't going to happen. Liv was well on her way to victory, the next step making the final table. After the break, we'll see just how events were about to unfold.
I feel sick, is the only way to describe it. I feel sick just watching it.
Liv Boeree, presenter, model and astrophysics graduate, is guiding us through her epic European Poker Tour win in San Remo 2010. But how did Liv first fall in love with the beautiful game of poker?
Saw an advert for a reality TV show and I was like, well, I'll apply for this. It said you could win some money. And they didn't say what it was that you'd be doing. And they had all these auditions and they chose me as one of the 5 contestants, and then they did this big sort of reveal that they were going to be teaching us how to play poker, and then we'd play against each other for this money. And yeah, I just completely fell in love with the game instantly.
From a starting field of 1,240 runners, we're now down to the last 9. Before the break, we saw Liv lose a large chunk of her stack to Italy's Claudio Pichetschi. And just 7 hands later, the 9th place was decided as Claudio Rinaldi went out on the final table bubble.
Yeah, on the final table was my old university friend Michael Piper. We definitely didn't exchange advice to one another. We were, we're both playing for the win. At the same time, there was still a layer of friendship at the table. Like we had good chat, we had good banter. I think we were actually very important for one another to keep each other calm. Just realised who you look like. Who? You look like Goose out of Top Gun.
Oh, so awesome.
Here we had 2 British players, and there was a real feeling in the poker world that after a quiet period, the Brits were on the ascent, that this was going to be their year.
Day 6, and Liv was ready to take her place amongst the final 8. Also at the table were Atanas Georgiev, Alexei Rubin, Giuseppe Dieppe, Claudio Pichetschi, Tony Peterson, Michael Piper and Jacob Carlsen, who'd stolen the chip lead with a whopping 13.5 million chips, while Liv had slipped into 5th place.
The 2 players I was watching were the 2 Scandies, Jakob Carlsen and Tony Peterson. They seemed very much in the zone, and I have to say, if I was a betting man, and I am, that's where my money would be.
End of day 5, when I knew I'd made the final table, I was so nervous. I couldn't really sleep that night, couldn't really eat anything in the morning. So excited. You know when you just have that ball in your stomach where you've got a huge day the next day?
Yes, Liv had made the final table, but she was one of the shorter stacks coming into the final day. And although she'd had 12 hours to get over that hand against Claudio Pichetschi, to be honest, I saw her finishing 6th or 5th.
Early on in day 6, Bulgaria's Atanas Georgiev was first to depart the final table with €90,000. Finland's Tony Peterson welcomed a double-up. 7-handed, Liv was once more facing Pichetschi.
So, Liv, the final table, 7-handed, and explain where we're at in this particular hand.
Well, so far we have seen Claudio Pichecci, he's open to 600,000 with pocket fours, which is actually a really, really big raise. The blinds are only 80,000, 160,000, so, you know, that's almost a 4 big blind raise.
And given your form with him, what were you thinking right here?
Well, right here, I mean, I don't really have any other move. I mean, I can certainly never flat, because that's just really bad with a hand like ace-queen. I'm going to be out of position. 2/3 of the time I'm going to miss the flop. He's got about 16 big blinds starting the hand, so it's a perfect just re-jamming spot, really. And
at what stage had you decided what you were going to do? You're still thinking about it now, or you made your shout and you were just freaking him out a bit?
That's actually a really good question. At this point, I'd actually been taking a long time with all my decisions. I mean, you've got to bear in mind that I'm very nervous now. The pressure's on.
Did he just wink at you?
Yes, he did.
I wasn't sure whether there was something in his eye or whether he was trying to wink.
We'd actually developed this really interesting dynamic where we like to stare at each other a lot. There was obviously a bit of sort of macho-ness trying to pass between the two of us.
Now, Liv, I'm not brown-nosing, but you are owning him on the staring. I mean... mind you, he's stepping it up there. He's stepping it up there.
He was pretty good. I'm all in.
Going all in.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's nothing else I can really do. There's only one move. He has 16 big blinds. He's made a big open. I mean, yes, I can be concerned that he's got a decent-sized pocket pair that he calls off with, and we're going to be flipping for a huge amount of chips, but there's a chance he has ace-jack, ace-10 as well, and then I'm in great shape. And he's winking at me.
He's doing it again.
Yep.
Quite possibly again something flew in his eye. I'm not sure what he's doing there. The difference between a professional player and an amateur in this situation is what, Liv? As far as Claudio's concerned.
Well, I mean, he's trying to get a read off me now. He's trying to decide how strong I am.
Yesterday, I'm playing push, pocket 6. I call. No. Oh no.
And now he's speaking backwards.
Well, yeah, he's just reminds me of the hand that we played yesterday, which was a fairly similar situation. You know, it's a big confrontation pre-flop.
And at this stage, did you anticipate he was going to fold?
Well, no. I mean, in a normal situation, if a player has 16 big blinds and they make it 4 times the big blind raise, there's never a hand that they're doing that with that they're ever folding. Okay. But then again, I'd seen in previous situations that he had the capability of doing that. And ultimately, if he has ace-jack and ace-10 or ace-9, I want him calling.
And it was a pivotal hand in the tournament, ultimately, wasn't it?
Yes, it definitely was. If he had called like he should have, we could have gone to the races, I could have lost, and the tournament would have been very different.
King, ace-J, ace-queen. Oh.
Yeah, that hand on the final table against Pichecci again, where he folded the 4s against my ace-queen, was fairly pivotal, because, I mean, if he had called, who knows, I might have lost that race, and then it would have been him maybe winning the tournament and not me.
And it wasn't long before we saw the departure of Pichecci at the hands of chip leader Jacob Carlsen. Next to leave was Giuseppe Dieppe, who, being dominated by Liv's pal Michael Piper's 10s, was forced to push with only 10 big blinds. He was closely followed by Russian Alexei Rubin, sent packing by Carlsen, leaving just 4 players left.
I mean, 50% of the final table went pretty quickly, leaving us with an impressive final 4. I mean, my picks were still in there, the 2 Scandis, Carlsen and Pettersson. But don't get me wrong, I was being patriotic as well. I was very excited to see both Liv and Michael. I was really pumped about the prospect of a British winner of an EPT.
But just a few hands later, short-stack Michael Piper's Queen 10 was dominated by Carlsen's Ace-King, Piper's departure leaving Liv to fly the flag alone.
So when Michael busted and there were just 3 of us left, I can't say I felt any more pressure just because I was the last Brit. I mean, I felt the pressure from the start of the final table. But yeah, it was nice to know that I was representing my country.
So Liv's in the last 3 and trailing in chips. There's still a mountain to climb.
So Liv, getting to the serious end of the tournament now, 3 of you left, and you're short stack, but not dramatically so.
No, I'm still relatively deep. I've still got 30 big blinds. I have 6 million. Tony on my left has 12 million, and then Jacob is the chip leader with almost 20. So I've still got 30 big blinds, and that's a very playable stack. Now, this is a lovely situation for me. I have pocket 8s in the small blind. So blind on blind, 3-handed, that's a monster hand. And I'm just trying to find a way to get it in pre-flop.
Now, Tony's very much an unknown quantity, isn't he? Finnish 18-year-old. You hadn't played him before this tournament, of course.
No.
How much had you worked out about him by this stage?
Well, I'd actually been playing with him almost continuously from day 5 onwards, and I'd seen that he's actually a very good, aggressive player. I know that he's capable of re-raising from the big blinds here with a very wide range of hands. So I'm hoping that he's going to re-raise relatively small and give me room to jam over the top, but either way, I'm going to jam.
Looks like he's going to very quickly re-raise with King-Queen.
Liv announces all in and the call.
Very quick all-in and a very quick call.
And here we go, off to the races again.
Queen.
8 of spades, 8 of clubs. Tony's hand is king queen. Queen of diamonds, king of hearts.
So, Liv, with a few flashes of temper, but you've been cool as a cucumber for most of this tournament. Maybe not so much here.
No, I feel sick, is the only way to describe it. I feel sick just watching it now.
Is it still bring it back?
Oh, hugely. I mean, this is... You can play the best you can, but ultimately, if you lose a coin flip like this is a difference between coming third and winning the title, which is such a big deal. And I mean, like I can't even bear to look at the flop. But so far, it's safe.
Does it get progressively easier? So when the turn comes
No.
and it's in your favour, doesn't make any impact?
No difference. I still want to throw up. Yeah, I mean, until that final river card comes out and it's a blank, then you're just on edge.
You called for an 8. She said 8 of diamonds. 8 of hearts did the trick.
It did. I didn't even need it, but it came along anyway.
And a complete reversal now of fortune in terms of your position and Tony's.
Yeah, exactly. We've switched. I now have 12 million. He now has 6.
Like 6 point something.
Jacob's still massively stacked, of course.
Just sitting, looking on calmly.
Yeah, blagging that, I think.
It is a universal truth in poker tournaments that in the later stages you have to win coin flips, you have to win races. And that's the spot Liv found herself in here. 8 against King-Queen, practically 50-50. The 8's held, in fact, better than that. They improved to a set. But she switches positions with Tony Petterson. Now she becomes a big stack. Now she becomes a serious contender.
OK, so this is hand 63, just a few hands on from the last one that we saw.
Oh, it's this hand. No.
Your favourite hand. We decided to put this in, Liv, just to cheer you up.
It's so embarrassing.
Head to head with Tony again. This, you told me, was pretty much a display of everything you shouldn't do.
Yeah,
in poker.
I misplay this hand as much as someone could misplay a hand. This is just terrible, terrible poker.
A masterclass in how not to play it. You could say that as the champ.
Yeah. I guess you could describe it as that. Basically, so I have pocket 7s in the small blind. The blinds are still the same, 100,000, 200,000. Tony's got about 26 big blinds. So in my head, I'm like, well, I'm going to limp. And I know that he's been really aggressive and he's been raising a lot of big blinds if limped to him. So I'm thinking he's going to raise and then I can jam over the top. But he doesn't. He just checks.
You were sure he was going to raise?
Yeah, I mean, I just thought that like 70 or 80% of the time he's going to raise. And then the flop comes like that.
A dream for Tony.
Dream for Tony. And in my head, it looks like a good flop for me. But of course, I've got to be remembering that his range is wide open there. He could well have a hand that contains a 4.
Absolutely oblivious, of course, to what he has.
Well, yeah, I mean, at this stage I am. I'm now going to fire out a bet because I think there's a strong chance I still have the best hand. I'm, of course, hoping that he's got a hand like 5, 6, some kind of weak 6 hand, basically.
So you're mining for information with that bet?
Yeah, I'm looking for information. I'm also betting for value because I stand to think that my hand is really strong. I mean, the only thing I'm really worried about is if he has a 4, which is generally unlikely because it's really hard to make 3 of a kind. And
he plays this very well, doesn't he?
He really does, yeah. I think he makes a good read on what I have. I mean, he's definitely... I mean, I'm showing some kind of strength because I played my hand passively pre-flop, and now all of a sudden I'm betting out. I've got to have some kind... I've got to connect it with that flop in some way. I mean, whether he thinks I am strong enough as an overpair.
What are you working out here?
Well, so he's made a raise of 825. I'm trying to figure out if he's just making a sort of scared information raise with a hand like, like I said, some kind of 6... or if he's actually trying to raise to induce a shove from me.
And he called straight away. At that moment, did he know you'd blown it?
Yes, absolutely. I get the bad news of just how badly I played the hand. It's embarrassing.
And you do what every self-respecting player should do in this situation, blame the dealer.
Absolutely, yeah. No, there is no one to blame in this except for myself.
Were you angry with yourself, Liv?
Furious. Absolutely furious. I mean, I couldn't have played the hand worse, and I was really, really annoyed.
You look annoyed watching it back.
Yeah, it's painful. Really, really painful. But then again, if this hand hadn't happened, who knows? I might not have won the tournament.
You learn from your mistakes.
Yes.
Of course, there was still hope here. You were calling for a 7. You got an ace of hearts.
No good there.
Possible flush draw, of course, which is what ends up happening, but it doesn't do you any good. Did that add insult to injury, that you had a flush and still lost the hand?
Not really, no. I mean, I was just so frustrated. Making a flush doesn't really make any difference unless I hit the 7, and then I'll just be embarrassed. Embarrassed but grateful.
I think we could clip that hand and put it online as an example of how not to play pocket 7s from the small blind. And I think my co-commentator William Reynolds put it perfectly when he said that she overplayed it slightly. What I was impressed with, though, is how she shook it off. She was laughing about the fact that her chip stack was yo-yoing up and down. She didn't let it affect her like she did that hand against Pacecci. She still was in it to win it.
Laughing her way to a huge bankroll, Liv continues her rollercoaster ride after the break as she creeps ever closer to getting her mitts on that glorious trophy. Welcome back to Poker's $1 Million Girl as we relive Liv Boeree's journey to victory at the EPT San Remo in April 2010. So far, we've seen 8 become 3, and Liv's battling it out 3-handed with Tony Pettersson and Jacob Carlsen, and her chip stack's been up and down like a yo-yo. But even under all the pressure, she still had time to have a bit of fun on the breaks.
You haven't won it yet, Liv.
Yeah, I do remember recording that piece of Michelle where it was just a funny skit where I was trying to keep the trophy and so on. And I remember touching it and being like, I really want to take that home. It's just such a beautiful trophy. And it's now at home on my mantelpiece.
Hand number 80 now, Liv. Serious tension in the room.
Yeah, you could say that. Just 3 left.
You look pretty calm, though.
I'm not inside. It's one of those ducks paddling on the water. Look calm on the outside, but legs are going crazy underneath.
Now, you and Tony are reasonably evenly stacked by this stage.
Yeah, I think I've got about 11. He's got about 10 million. And this is an interesting spot. So Tony has opened the button with King-Queen offsuit. Fairly standard race is 600,000. And I'm in the big blind with 3s.
So what are you trying to evaluate here?
Well, first of all, I'm trying to figure out what his chip stack is. So, you know, blinds and so on, how many blinds he has. Trying to figure out, do I want to get all of my money in pre-flop with pocket 3s, or do I just want to call? The trouble is with just calling here is I'm going to be playing a multi-street pot, chances are, with 3s out of position against an aggressive player, which is really tough.
And you're asking him here about his stack size, but you presumably know the answer to that already when he's playing.
I had an idea, but I just wanted to verify. And I remember trying to decide, like, do I just call? I mean, obviously, I could try and go set mining, but he's not really deep enough. We're not really deep enough to go doing that. So I just try and take the pot down pre-flop. Because the other thing is, he's been opening fairly wide. He's been opening a lot of hands from the button. You know, not complete garbage, but all sorts of like hands like 6-7 suited and so on, he would be opening. So, and those are the sort of hands that wouldn't withstand a re-raise.
So you were looking to take him down pre-flop. That was your key objective here.
Yeah, I just want to pick up the pot pre-flop. I stand to have the best hand with a pocket pair. Tony, of course, trying to decide what to do. The interesting thing is, if he had 4-bet me here, I would have folded.
So if he'd re-raised, you would have folded?
Yeah, I think so.
He doesn't, he calls you.
Well, the only re-raise he could have done is just a shove, and I don't want to call a shove for that many chips with just pocket 3s, because I'm flipping at best. You know, I could be up against an overpair. And he does just call. And the perfect door card, and in fact the perfect flop. I mean,
dream flop.
You couldn't write it better. It's an absolutely perfect flop for me.
What were you planning on doing irrespective of that dream flop?
I was planning on firing a continuation bet on almost all boards. I mean, if a board had come like Jack 10-9 or, you know, lots of, you know, a very connected Broadway type flop, I probably would have just checked, given up, because that obviously connects with most of his hands that he's calling with. But you know, a board like Queen 6-4, I was going to continuation bet. I was going to continuation bet a wide variety of textures.
So the 1.5 mil bet was mainly for information?
Well, here, you know, when I bet here, I mean, he's expecting me to continuation bet. I obviously now have an absolute monster, so I am just betting for value. I'm praying that he has a king or a flush draw. or even a hand like nines, I think he's likely to continue with.
So, Liv, what's Tony thinking here with this raise?
Well, I mean, whilst the raise is only really a min raise, it's so much of his stack. He's trying to say, I have the best hand, I'm going to take this down now, go away, basically. He's trying to take the pot down, and I don't blame him, because there's a lot of cards that come out in the turn that could scare him.
And the moment he made that raise, you knew you were going to go all in?
Oh, without question. I knew that, he had so much of his stack committed that he was never folding. He obviously had a strong hand.
All in. Liv is all in.
Call.
And he makes the call. She shows the set of threes. Pettersson with just a 2% chance to survive. Runner needed for the Finn.
3 of hearts, 3 of clubs.
Okay. Liv in great shape here.
3 of a kind choice for Liv. Let's see the turn round.
Pettersson resigned to his fate. He's drawing dead on the turn. He will be our third place finisher. He will collect 420,000 euros. He's played a great game and should be proud of this finish in his first ever live event.
Yeah.
Busting Tony was a nice feeling, obviously, because then it meant we were heads up. He was a really tough player. I mean, for such a young guy, he was only 18. It was one of his first ever live tournaments, and to come third in it is incredible. Yeah, I remember the really pivotal hand was where I had pocket threes and he had king queen, and it came king 7-3, I think, and we got it in. That was a very, very nice hand. I'm very grateful for that one.
And Liv finally makes heads up, and with chip stacks relatively even, she was facing a real duel.
So, Liv, heads up time. We haven't talked much about Jacob. He was a player you knew a fair bit about, wasn't he?
Yeah, of all the people I wanted to get heads up against, he was not the one. He's a very, very experienced online player. He's got a lot of heads up experience. He goes by the username Mendieta19. So I knew he was going to be very, very tough.
So you're saying avoid him if you're ever in a room with Mendieta19 online?
Yeah, essentially. He's a great, fantastic player.
What's he like live?
Very similar. He's very hard to read, very stoic, aggressive, patient. He's a good player.
Liv, how does your play differ heads up?
Well, obviously you've got to be opening up your ranges of hands that you're prepared to play. When you're heads up, you can't be sitting there waiting for pocket pairs and, ace queens, etc. You've got to be prepared to get involved. And in this particular hand, Jacob has opened button to 600,000 with king 8 offsuit, and I have defended my big blind with queen jack. I just chose to defend because we're both very deep. We're about 70 big blinds deep, and I don't want to get involved in a big pre-flop war with a marginal hand against an aggressive player, and I don't want to play a big pot out of position against him either.
So, limited options here.
Yeah, well, this is an interesting flop for me. I mean, I've got a great draw. I've got 2 overcards, I've got the third nut flush draw, and I've got a gut shot. What I should do here, in hindsight, is do nice big check raise. You could make an argument for leading out, but the trouble is that up to this point I'd never led out, where he had opened from the button, I'd called, and then I just led the flop. If I did that, I think I would have telegraphed what I had. I would have said, I have a draw of some kind, and then he would know how to play against me perfectly. Instead, what I did, I just check call, which I don't like. It's very passive. It's going to lead me to a difficult situation on the turn. Even if I hit one of my draws, it's going to be difficult for me to try and get the money in.
Now, interesting on the turn here, you go from a check call to a check raise. In retrospect, you don't like this play, do you?
No, I don't at all. Jacob, of course, has now turned trips, and he's going to continue betting his hand. And I'm in a fair bit of hot water because there's not much I can really do if I want to continue trying to win the hand. The only thing I can now do is to make a check raise. But if you think about what I'm representing by check calling and then check raising, I'm very polarised, because the only thing I'm really representing is either a flop flush or an 8. And of course he has the 8. So in Jacob's head, nothing makes any sense. I'm either bluffing, or semi-bluffing in this case, with a draw, or I have flops of flush. And I don't think Jacob's going to be too worried about that.
So Jacob bets 1.6. Let's carry on with your hot water analogy.
Well, so I now check raise. I check raise pretty big. to 3.9 million. Basically, I'm doing what I should have done on the flop. If I was going to make a stab at the pot, the flop was the time to do it, not on the turn. Because, like I said, I'm just not really representing anything other than a flop, either a bluff, a flop flush, or an 8. And, of course, he has the 8. So this is a disaster.
What's Jacob trying to work out here?
Well, I mean, I'm sure Jacob is going to have a think. He's probably running through all the possible permutations that I could have. And he's thinking, I think she's probably not got much at all, or she's semi-bluffing with some kind of flush draw. I'm going to try and find a way to get it in right now.
Is he a hard player to read?
Incredibly hard. I mean, look at him. He just doesn't react. He's very stoic. His eyes don't move. He doesn't really speak. He doesn't show any signs of nervousness. He's incredibly tough to read.
In hands he's not playing in, does he maintain that composure?
He's always watching. He's very observant. I mean, any good poker player should be observing. When you're not involved in a hand, you should always be seeing what's going on, looking for tells, looking for the way people play their hands. If they get to showdown, remember what they did, in previous streets. And Jacob is a prime example of that. And he does shove. And now I have to just swallow my pride and fold.
I think I can see you literally swallowing.
Yeah, I don't fold immediately. I probably should have done, just to save some time. I've got to try and save some face by pretending that I have some kind of decision to make.
Do you think he's buying that?
No. I think he knew that I didn't have that much all along. I'll just pretend. TV time, TV time.
Yeah, ruffle the hair. That's always a good thing
what
to
a
do.
tough decision I have to make.
Oscar-winning performance, Liv.
Well, it's just very difficult when you've got the lights on you and you've made a bad play, just to make it obvious to your opponent that you've made a bad play.
I like the way you checked his stack as well. That was the final flourish with that.
Yeah. Rolling my eyes like, oh, what a difficult situation. No, I'm just annoyed at myself for misplaying the hand a bit.
So a big loss, but certainly not over yet.
After the break, more heads-up action as Liv takes some worthy advice from her more experienced mates. Welcome back. Poker's million-dollar girl Liv Boeree is here to take us through those nail-biting moments that led to her huge win at the San Remo EPT in 2010. We're heads up now, and before the break we saw Liv make a serious loss to Sweden's Jacob Karlsson.
Heads up against Karlsson was pretty intimidating. He's one of the best players around.
Claudio Pichecci at the rail, perhaps thinking it could have been me.
So, Liv, this is 14 hands later, and you very much wrestled back the advantage, almost double Jacob's stack.
Yeah, I've got about 24 million, he's got 13 now. Almost tasting the victory.
You were thinking about it, or did you just try and block it out?
No, you just can't really think about it. You just got to play each hand to each hand.
You say that, but it must creep into your mind a bit.
Now and then, but why add extra pressure to yourself unnecessarily? Just, you just got to play each situation as it comes. And in this situation, Jacob is on the button again with King-9 offsuit. And I'm in the big blind with pocket threes. Now, Jacob's got he's got a little over 50 big blinds. So he's still deep enough for me to profitably go set mining, as we referred to earlier. And again, similarly, I don't want to get into a pre-flop raising war with a hand like pocket threes, because I don't want to get in a spot where I have to call off. I don't want to destroy the value of them as well.
Now, this was a nice flop for pocket threes, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's really nice. It comes 10-4 deuce. It's nice because it's not scary for me, and it's also not that scary for Jacob. Like, he can continuation bet it a lot of the time.
You chose to check call. Did he consider a check raise?
Yeah, I could have check raised here. Again, I didn't really want to reopen up the action to Jacob. I stood to have the best hand. And whilst it's tricky to play on subsequent streets, I could be left guessing, I didn't want to get into a big battle with him. I know that he is capable of 3-betting me on the flop with air, as well as with his value hands. So I didn't want to get into a huge confrontation unnecessarily. I just wanted to hopefully get to showdown, because I have, as we say, I had showdown value. So I just check call.
Now on the turn, this is when you pretty much know you've got him. On the turn when he checks back, that's a key moment, isn't it?
I check, he checks back, and I was preparing to call almost every single river if he decided to bet. Of course, that is a lovely river card for me, because I now river a gut shot. I picked up a gut shot straight draw on the turn, and I now river it. Not that I actually needed it anyway.
So you choose to bet value?
Yeah, I'm betting for value here.
And you're hoping he has what?
I mean, I'm hoping he has some kind of, maybe a weak 10. He could have played in that way. Maybe a middle-ish pair, like 7s or 8s. Or some kind of combo flush draw. I'm hoping he has some kind of hand that he can pay me off with. But then again, there's not many hands that I'm check calling and then betting river with that he's beating.
So you bet 1.5 million. Jacob decides to re-raise, and that surprises you now when you look back on the hand, but at the time, were you...
Well, I mean, Jacob knows that he's a more experienced heads-up player than me. Maybe he thinks that he can just apply some pressure. He's basically trying to represent a 3 here. That's the only hand that he's representing, or maybe some kind of river 2 pair. Of course, I have the 3, so I'm in a great spot. So what I've got to try and decide here is, do I just call? Because the trouble is, if I re-raise now, I'm not really going to get called by anything that I'm not beating. Like, the only hand that can ever call me is 3-7, which of course I'm losing to. They have a higher straight.
This turns out to be a critical mistake for Jacob. Have you guys talked about this hand since it happened?
No, we haven't really had chance. I'd really be interested to see, to talk to him about heads up in general, because he's such a good player. 9.
8-4.
So, Liv, what are you weighing up here?
Well, I'm trying to decide whether to just call or whether to raise, i.e. set him in. I was trying to weigh up whether he maybe had caught some kind of 2 pairs, basically a hand worse than mine that he could call a river jam with, and then, of course, I would have won the tournament.
Liv re-raise all in.
So why did you choose to jam?
Well, I chose to do that because I thought, like I said, there's a chance that this could be the last hand and it could be done.
The killer blow.
I had a very strong hand, but the trouble is with my jam, in hindsight, I don't like it because I am only ever getting called realistically by 3-7, which is a hand I'm losing to, which of course would be disastrous. The only benefit from shoving in this situation was that I then get to muck my hand. He doesn't get to see what I have, and he doesn't get that vital information that he could then use against me in later hands.
So a huge pot turned out to be critical.
Yes, it does. I now have a huge chip lead.
So 1 minute Carlsen has the advantage, but in heads up, no limit hold'em, to coin the cliche, things can change very quickly, and sure enough, the stacks are reversed, and now it's Liv Boeree with the advantage. And suddenly, every Brit watching is thinking, is she going to do this? Is she going to close this? Can she defeat this Swedish phenom?
With a stack of almost 24 million chips compared to Jacob's 13.4, we're about to go into the 100th hand of play. But with the prospect of becoming a millionaire edging ever closer, Liv decides to phone a friend.
I remember when we got to heads up, we had a small break, so I called my friends in Vegas, Sean Deeb and Ali Prescott, who are both incredible players. Sean has a lot of experience against Jacob. So he was giving me sort of tips, he gave me ranges, he gave me shoving ranges and so on. And interestingly, on one of the very last breaks, when I had worn Jacob down, I had about 30 million to his 7 million. He was like, he's going to be shoving really, really wide. If you open and he shoves, be prepared to call with pocket 5s and up.
So, Liv, what turns out to be the final hand, the knockout blow, 1.25 million euros on the line, and of course the title and the prestige that comes with that.
Yeah, I mean, I get goosebumps just watching this clip, even though I've seen it so many times. I can't describe the feeling of just the start to finish of this, but to get to the hand, I have pocket 5s on the button, and I raise my fairly standard raise of 700,000. You shouldn't alter your bet sizing heads up against someone like Jacob Carlsen, because he can pick up on bet sizing tells.
Jacob decides to go all in.
Jacob re-raise all in.
Yeah, Jacob has a strong hand heads up. He has ace-6, and that is more than enough. It's exactly what he needs in order to shove. And I'm just thinking through my phone call that I had with Sean Deeb on the break about half an hour earlier, where he said, if he gets to around 20 big blinds, your calling range should be pocket 5s and above. So I'm just verifying that information in my head. Yeah, so I'm just checking that everything is correct.
Huge amount of pressure on this.
Yeah, it was a scary call to make.
And call.
And I call, and we are off to the races.
All in hand for Jacob is ace-6, ace of hearts, 6 of diamonds.
So you know at this stage you're marginally ahead, but he has a dangerous hand.
Yeah, he does. I mean, I'm a 56% favourite, but I have to fade all the aces, all the sixes, and any weird straight or flush combinations.
And this was the tournament, Liv, that absolutely put you on the map.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was playing a lot of poker beforehand, but I mean, it's a life-changing event. I can't describe it. I mean, of course, the money is monumental, but that title meant everything, because it's not often that women win EPTs. So I'm fortunate enough to be one of those. It's a very small and exclusive club.
Agonising wait for the flop finally comes. And it's very favourable for you.
Yeah, I'm still in front right now. I'm 70% favourite now. I just basically have to fade an ace or a six or a running straight.
Jacob retaining that composure we've seen all the way through the tournament. He's not showing any emotion at all, is he?
Yeah, I was out there with my eyes shut, heart in mouth, can't move, breathing heavily.
So the turn is a 7. You must be thinking about 6 hours down the line in a nightclub, champagne flowing, right?
Well, not quite yet. It's not over yet. Just one more card.
There it is.
Yeah, words can't really describe it, to be honest, Nat. Oh, that final hand. I called off with pocket fives, Jacob had ace six, so it was a true coin flip, and I just, even thinking about it now, it was so tense. I couldn't even watch. I think I covered my eyes. I was just, doing that. Yeah, I mean, the flop was blank. The turn, I think, brought him a few more outs. And I just couldn't watch. I mean, when your heart is in your mouth and your feet and everywhere all at one time. And then when that final river card came out and I was safe, it was just indescribable.
So after some near misses, Liv finally gets that big score, and what a score. She's taken down the biggest poker tournament ever held in Europe. She's bested a field of 1,240 players. She's bagged herself 1.25 million euros, and she's joined this elite club of players who've won a European Poker Tour title, an even smaller club of female players who've won an EPT. So obviously she's going to attract the attention of the world, and she now has the bankroll and the confidence to enter and potentially win more major poker tournaments.
As soon as I won, my friend Michelle Orp, who's the presenter of the EPT, jumped on set and just gave me a huge hug. She was, we were both almost crying. It was just wonderful. And then she had to interview me, and I just didn't even know what to say. I could barely speak. I was just, it was just so exciting.
Liv Boeree, how does it feel? EPT San Remo champion?
I can't even speak. I don't want to cry because that's not professional.
No, cry. I'm crying and I'm working. It's fine.
I can't believe that I've won this. This is incredible. It's so weird. I felt like I was gonna.
Liv, you said this morning you were going to bring your A game today. You did it.
Yeah, I really did actually. I'm kind of surprised. I just, like, everyone today played so good. I mean, Jacob was amazing. He was the one person I didn't want to get heads up against. I was like, oh God, really him? Because I mean, he's a legendary online player. He's so good. But yeah, I mean, I just ran well. Obviously, I played good. It was just, one of those things. I won.
1,250,000 euros. Let's give it up for the winner from UK, Liv Boeree.